Hello, ladies and gents. We're starting the Monday with a bang. But first of all, welcome to Living with Us. Our show today is an important one, and we're going to talk about disciplining the child, which can be, it can be a headache for a lot of parents. But before that, we are changing things up. And so every week we'll be celebrating a man and later on a lady as well. And for today we have Man Crush Monday. And our MCM is Francis Otieno Amonde. And he is the founder of the Cup of Uji project. And it's an initiative that provides porridge to children in poor schools, enabling them to stay in school. And for that, we celebrate you. We celebrate you, Francis. Good job. And just like that, I'm on the set that you're usually seeing me on. Now, remember, we are hosting a giveaway. I don't know if we'll give it away today or tomorrow. Most likely tomorrow, actually. But nonetheless, please chime in on social media. We'd love to hear your thoughts. That's Living with S on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as they say. Now, today's topic, okay, we're getting into discipline, right? Spanking, timeouts, all the different things that we try and do as parents to try and make sure that our children come out as whole human beings, as wholesome people, and good and kind people. And our guest today is a child psychologist, right? A clinical psychologist. Her name is Dr. Ayuya Muaka. And if ever we were to get advice from someone, it's from the lady to my right. Welcome.
Asante sana.
Oh, okay. So discipline. I think you must go through a lot of crazy stories in your office. I can only imagine what comes into your space when it comes to disciplining children and rowdy kids. Am I right? Or
you're very right.
Yeah. Now I guess the first question would be to try and put into perspective how important discipline is. So maybe in just a couple of sentences you can share, why should we even care about disciplining our children?
Sharon, thank you so much for welcoming me on this show and probably bringing out this pertinent, quite a very important discussion about discipline. And with everything that is happening around us, everybody's asking whether we should discipline or not, or what are we doing, are we failed? Yes, and discipline begins all the way from childhood. And it is important we discipline. Why do we discipline? It's because we want to help the child change behavior, modify the behavior of the child, probably look towards a more positive behavior, and that's what we are doing. We are also helping this child deal with emotions. Kids go through a lot of emotions, and most of the time they engage in issues that are likely to be emotional.
Yeah.
It is okay for a child to be angry. It is okay for a child to get emotional in any way.
Yeah.
But then what about if you nurture positive emotions out of any behavior that has been portrayed by the child? We also want to deal with anxieties. They have a lot of fears here and there about issues. Most of the time they get themselves into trouble with others or in trouble with authority or parents.
Yeah.
And this causes a lot of anxiety. So how do we deal with it? So discipline helps nurture in the way we deal with anxiety. And of course, we just want them to be good people in society.
At the core, that's what we want for children, for people generally. And I think you're right. It stems from right there at the root, at the beginning. So when we say discipline, what do we mean? Do we mean spanking? Do we mean timeouts? Is there more to the world of discipline than what we generally hear about?
There is more to that. Discipline is not spanking. But timeout is part of discipline.
Wait, sorry. Discipline is not spanking?
No.
Wait a second. Because I think I want us to zoom in for a second and focus on my mother and all the mothers who spanked. Do you really mean discipline is not spanking?
Yes, and spanking is not discipline.
Look, if you were like me and had it tough growing up, raise your hands. I can see a lot of people just going like, what do you mean? All that, how my childhood was about spanking. So, can you elaborate on that for a second?
Sharon, spanking is actually punishment. And remember, spanking causes, it's a physical assault on a child.
You're blowing me away. I think
sure.
we are like 2 minutes in and I feel like we need a break because I need to just have some water. Spanking is a physical assault on a child?
Sure.
I'm speechless. Okay, go on. Go on.
Right. And if you're physically assaulting a child, what are you trying to communicate? You're communicating aggression, you're communicating hurting, you're communicating, you deal with your problems on a physical way. Because there would be moderate spanking, you know, and you would also go to the high extreme of spanking.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Spanking remains that spanking.
But okay, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this, right? So I was spanked a lot as a child, and at the time, of course, I didn't like it, but I think it helped steer me onto the right path, and it showed me where not to cross the boundaries. At least that's what I think now as an adult. But then I see these kids who are so rowdy, a kid who can, you know, scream profanities at his or her mother and refuse to obey rules, and you're telling me that even in that situation, spanking is not an option?
The alternative options, they would actually achieve more positive behavior than if you spank.
Wow.
Sure.
Mind blown. I could almost spend like an entire show on just what you've just extrapolated, but for now you were going on about like the different ways of discipline. So spanking is not an option. We'll come back to that. But you were also saying timeout. So what else is there when it comes to discipline?
You know, first, if it went, most people don't know what timeout means actually. But let's say timeout is when you remove a child from a situation where whatever is causing the behavior or not is not available.
Okay.
So you send them away. You take them away to go to some different place, maybe for a minute, for two, depending on other factors, and then they will be able to miss what they did want to have, or probably the resources that were making them exhibit the behavior or the mistake or cause them trouble with people, and then now you remove them from that. And then now you bring them back after some time. And probably later when we look at some of those discipline issues, we could look at it probably how do you go about it, because it depends on many factors.
Yeah, but now timeout could work with, you know, a 2-3-year-old. What about, you know, a 16-year-old man who's bigger than you? You're not gonna, it might be hard to send them to timeout. So what are the options there?
So you're just asking me probably, what are some of the ways that we can discipline? I would take it, for example, there is what we call positive discipline.
Okay.
I want to use one example that is going to run across all these types of disciplines, and then we could see what works for what child. Okay. You have a 7-year-old child or a 6-year-old child, and has been given an assignment in school or some homework, and they've completely refused to do the homework. Let's begin. There's positive discipline. Okay. Positive discipline is mostly focusing on praise, whereby you want the child to be able to look at this as not punishment, and you don't want them to get in trouble with the teachers, and therefore you are actually directing towards a future behavior that is going to cause them not to get in trouble with the teacher.
So for instance, in that case, it's like, oh, you know, if you do your homework, you get, you'll get better grades in school. Would that be praise?
You could say that. You could actually say, you know what, mommy, or whatever you call your child, what if you did this, assignment? I think the teacher will be very happy with you, and he actually will be, he will feel good about what you've done and being able to do in time.
That feels like it would work with a younger child.
That's a younger child.
Older?
Older children, there are other behavior modification, where we have reinforcement. And in reinforcement, we are looking at consequences of a behavior. For example, there's there will be positive consequence if a positive outcome if you do something good, but there will be also a negative outcome. I have students going to, I have high school students, and they're going for a trip, and one refuses to clean up the dormitory. We just, and this trip is paid for. Then I remove I'll tell them you're not going to go for the trip. because you've not done that. So it's like you've removed something that would be positive about them. That becomes negative.
So taking something
Yes,
away.
you take it, yeah.
Right. So that could work, especially with teenagers who are constantly on their phones. They want to hang out with their friends and they want pocket money. They want the newest clothes. And you could just be like, actually, no, no, no. So spanking may not really have a place in all of this.
No, spanking only deals with the problem now.
Okay.
Remember, spanking is punishment. If I differentiate between discipline and punishment, discipline, you're looking towards future behavior. You're changing and modifying behavior for future. Punishment, you are dealing with the past behavior. So you've not actually taken care of future.
Okay. Actually, I think you've said something really important, but we have to go on a quick break and we'll come back and to touch more on the difference between future behavior. If you're just joining us, we are talking about disciplining your child. And Dr. Ayuya Muaka is on the show today, telling us how to go about it. And she's just blown my mind, basically saying that spanking is not part of discipline. I can't believe it. But before we go back into the conversation, make sure you're following us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And we are hosting a giveaway too. So just keep chatting with us on there. And you never know, you might be the lucky winner, right? But now back to the convo. Before we went on the break, you did say discipline is about managing or focusing on future behavior. Punishment, which is where spanking comes in, is about past behavior. So, say for instance, your 8-year-old child decided to take your car out for a drive, and in doing so, wrecked not only your car, but scratched the neighbor's car as well. In that instance, can spanking be okay?
No.
I'm just so stuck on this.
It isn't working.
Oh,
it's a physical assault on a child.
So you're telling me, do you have any children, Dr.
Sure.
Muaka? You've never spanked your children?
No.
How many? What? Okay, we're going to have to move from that because you just might have me the entire show staring at you with a shocked face. Okay, so maybe let's touch on the actual child for a second. There are instances where you see same parents, same rules, but two children act very different towards discipline. How much of that can be changed by nature versus nurture coming into play?
Well, Sharon, there are various factors that interplay to make up a human being. Mm-hmm. And we even if we were twins, we're different in our own different ways. And therefore, our personalities, other factors, environmental factors, exposure, the parenting styles, and other factors contribute to who we are. And therefore, one child can react the same discipline in different ways than the other, and that's understandable because of different interplay of different factors. And it is always important to look at those factors. For example, there's no way the same discipline will probably work for a 3-year-old child and it's going to work for a 14-year-old child. True. Because the child factors, the age, the developmental milestone at which they are at that point of time, the way they process information is totally different. So children are different from, say, teenagers, etc.
But let's say you have twins.
Right.
And maybe one is just more difficult to manage and contain than the other, and they just never listen. In which case, it's clearly nature because it's just their personality. How do you go about disciplining when to them it can often feel like you're always picking on me, but my sister or my brother, nothing happens? How do you deal with that?
Then that all comes in terms of how do you discipline a child. Either way, every child needs to know why you're actually disciplining them. Why are you disciplining me? So before, our mothers, for example, sometimes they would, you'd get in trouble in the morning. Yeah. They would allow you to go to school. Yeah. Then in the evening, they actually come for you. That's not good. You don't create the meaning of discipline. The child doesn't understand. It has to be instant. It has to be, you have to be consistent. You have to also look at other factors of like explaining to me, you know what, I am punishing you because of this or this, or I'm disciplining you because of this and that.
So you said something really important. I want you to pretend that I'm a child right now. I am a 9-year-old girl, and I'm upset because I can't watch cartoons anymore. So what I do is I smack this cup and it falls over and breaks. How do you discipline me?
Well, depending on you, because you're 9-year-old, I would I can use an emotional discipline, emotional coaching.
So how would you literally
because I'm reading more of emotions from you.
Okay.
You are more upset.
Yes, I am upset. I'm angry. I can't watch my
the question
cartoon.
is, what are you angry about? Depends. If it's something that is obviously good, for example, you're angry because someone has broken your tablet. And I'll tell you, you know, yes, people get angry when people do to them mistakes that are, when people cause them into trouble. Your sister's broken your tablet. And that can make you angry. However, if you're angry, you don't have to also cause another anger. What if we look at this? And I would ask you, probably, tell me, now that she's broken your tablet, and now you're also breaking the glasses, how does that make you feel?
So, okay, so does that always work?
It depends. You should have known this child, literally. Like there are those with temperaments that are very high, there are those who listen and correct. So that's why if you look at types of disciplines, then I would probably focus on it. Because if I'm doing a positive discipline, if I'm looking at a behavioral change, modification discipline, if I'm looking at emotional challenge discipline, it will actually depend on the child, the other factors, the child factors, environmental factors, parental factors. You could be dealing with a parent who is extremely authoritative or authoritarian or whatever. Now, how they approach it is going to be different. But what is underlying is, how do you discipline this child? So instead of spanking you, I could actually withdraw probably even a privilege. For example, you've broken this, and therefore you will not get this because
no TV for the week.
Yes, no TV for the week. You not use your computer, or you know, do ABCD. Alternatively, if I was supposed to be taking you out over the weekend, I'll say probably I'm not going to take you out. I want to use that money for replacing what you've broken. So we can always find something. Or if you are anticipating to do something for them, you withdraw the privilege and say, we'll not do that because then we need to replace the glass that you've broken.
Okay, so now you earlier on, you touched on that there are different factors that can affect how you choose to discipline someone. And you said it could be age and natural factors, just, you know, personality. What about gender? Is it different disciplining a boy from a girl?
No. That should not really be. Gender should be, age should be, but gender should not be. Because what makes boys different from girls is the biological, but the rest, a child remains a child. An 8-year-old child has similar way of growing up, just like a boy or a girl. So there's no difference.
I like that. Because sometimes you find that in households, sometimes, not all the times, but guys will get it harder because they need to be tougher. So punishment can be a little bit heavier. But I like that it needs to be balanced. And ultimately what we're raising are kids who aren't so aware of the gender differences and how one can be favorable over another. Now, what about firstborns? Because I know a lot of people, myself included, who it seems like you just get it harder as a firstborn, and that at some point, you know, your parents are probably just too tired to bother with the fourthborn or the fifthborn, and they're just like, nah, this one just does this. How do you go about making sure that it's balanced so that no child is favored, or that even your energy doesn't keep shifting depending on which age or where the child comes in?
I think consistency should be the factor, because consistency means if Sharon is 16-year-old and Caroline is 20-year-old, and Sharon broke a glass and Caroline broke a glass, the measures should be the same, consistency. Because if you're not consistent, then you'll have a problem. Of course, what makes you me firstborn and you secondborn is the age difference. And therefore, we're likely to be perceived differently in terms of age. Not necessarily because you're firstborn and I'm secondborn. It's more of age. A 16-year-old child might be the firstborn, but a 4-year-old child is a different. A 4-year-old child has not fully developed their brain at this point of time, as expected. But a 16-year-old child is well developed, and therefore, even the way we approach, the way we talk, the way we discuss is different. So basically, being a firstborn only places you ahead in terms of age.
Yeah.
And therefore, those factors interplay when disciplining a child.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although we perceive it as they're doing this because I'm an older child. Parents need to go through parenting classes. Probably, I don't know whether it should be true when they're going through probably birth or whatever classes that are given here, so that they can understand these things before they have this baby. Alternatively, when they have their babies, they should have it. We go wrong because we don't know.
Right.
We just think he's a firstborn, she should be responsible. You can't be responsible for someone breaking a glass in the house. Yeah. She broke the glass. It should be directed to her. It shouldn't be directed to you. Just because she's 6 and broke a glass, and you're 20, and then the parent is hitting on you for not looking at her for breaking a glass, that is wrong. Then you don't help this other girl.
Yeah.
You actually bring up a naughty girl or boy. You also bring up a child who definitely will always get in trouble with people, because there is no one who has actually disciplined her or him.
Okay.
But parents discipline you for a mistake.
Okay. Now, what about children with some kind of mental illness, or maybe it's ADHD, or it's something that they're suffering with? How do you go about disciplining them?
I do this often. I have to go to schools. Okay. I have to educate the teachers. I have to sit in the classroom, observe this child, and now help the teachers understand that this child, for example, has ADHD, and we can only use probably behavior modification strategies to help this child go well. Otherwise, we always find ourselves in trouble, because these kids end up probably dropping school or getting into worse mental problems like conduct disorders. It is because of how we perceive them. It is perceived it's wrong parenting, which is not true.
Yeah.
It is a child has ADHD. ADHD is a mental illness and needs to be taken care of it. So what we do as clinicians, we definitely look at all the environment the child is in, at home and at school, and we actually interact with these environments to help this child grow. Teach them on how to handle this child, and also teach the child themselves on how to be able to handle themselves. And we always find it works. So clinicians literally have to work with homes or environments where this child is interacting mostly, usually mostly two, school and home. And sometimes it calls us to call the whole family and sit down and tell them,
this is how you do
this boy is this, and we need to help this boy.
Okay.
So we can't spank, we can't keep on calling them naughty, we can't label them. They actually grow up and have severe mental problems.
Because of the wrong way of disciplining.
Exactly.
Right. Okay, so you touched on something. We have to go on a break shortly, but before we do that, I want you to break down how important discipline is in school, and maybe even touch on the fact that in some schools, we still have teachers spanking children. In school,
I mean, as I said earlier, I have in some cases gone to school myself.
Yeah.
I have in some cases addressed the issue of the child, done an assessment, and seen the child as this kind of a condition, ADHD or say oppositional defiant disorder or conduct disorder. Those are extreme cases usually, and usually they can cause a lot of issues in school and between the child and other people. So what we do, we go to school and help these teachers understand this child, and all of them we say we have to work together to help this child. Meanwhile, the child remains always a child that I need to see moment to help modify the behavior, and with time they live well. What is important is that whenever you see your child has extreme behaviors that you are helpless, then seek help. we might just help you to help the
I
child.
love that. And I love that what you're doing as well
Yeah.
is bridging the gap between school and home. Because a lot of times we just, assume that the teachers know what they're doing. They'll just handle this child for me, whether they are just extremely naughty children or maybe they have ADHD or something. We just assume, we'll figure it out at some point. But what you're doing is bridging the gap and bringing everyone together so that whatever communication is ongoing is consistent.
Sure.
I love that. Okay, when we come back, I want to touch a little bit more on blended families, but we have to take a quick break for now. We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, ladies and gents. We're talking about disciplining children. That thing that you have to do, even though it's difficult, and sometimes kids can get the best of you. But it's okay. We've got an expert on the show, and she's going to break it down for us. But also, I want to take a moment to remind you that we are hosting a giveaway and that one of you guys will be the lucky winner on tomorrow's show. So you have to come back to see if you were the winner. Now, back to you, Dr. Muaka. Now, let's get into blended families. How does one go about disciplining when they are the new person in that family dynamic?
Well, I agree with you, Sharon. That can really be a very interesting aspect to look at because everybody's coming on with their children, and you don't know who to discipline who and who to say what. And these are things that we actually ask the two people, the couple. Take discipline as all of you for everybody and not one partner. So that if child A has found themselves in trouble or they are whatever having a problem, both of you take it as up your issue and don't leave one parent to take it up on them. Because we don't want one other kids or other people feel that there is favor here, or this is doing that, and etc. And this is the importance of discussing these issues with professionals like us on how to handle this later.
Yeah.
People just think we're in love, but people don't realize that there are kids that are coming all the way from different families that we're going to put them together, and nobody seems to be bothered about that.
Yeah.
It is important that we address, because it can take us quite a number of sessions for us to address how do you relate with your children. If, say, for example, if the man, what about your children? Ages, we take all that, we do a lot of assessments, and then now we see what will be the best approach in terms of discipline, in terms of taking care of all these kids that are together, coming together from different families, meeting in this home. How do we do and how do we go about? So most important for me is just before you settle down for marriage, come and seek for help. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so that you're all on the same page. You actually said something that caught my attention, which is that both parents need to be involved when it's a blended family. What about when it's not a blended family and one parent seems to be more of the disciplinarian than the other? How does one, is that right? Or how do you even change it if it's not?
It is true that we can actually find sometimes the fathers don't have the ones, maybe the mamas, most of the family African setup, it's always the mother probably most of the time really disciplining the kids. Most of the time, because the father is on move and ABCD. Yeah. The parent has every, it is all bestowed on you to discipline your child. And it is important, unlike in these special cases where we have blended families or such kind of stuff, you really want not to bring in a lot of issues arising because of the way you're disciplining. But in this case, any parent should be able to discipline their child. But most important is that this discipline should be agreed upon, that if it's my father coming later, he should actually support what I did and say that was right. You know, mommy did this to you because of ABCD and this is that. But it should never be seen that it is only one parent disciplining and the other one is always quiet,
Yeah.
looking the nice parent.
Yeah.
It's not good. It should be always looking like this is a family affair. It's affecting all our children. Even when people bring their kids in therapy, I insist on both parents, and I insist that both of you should come.
Yeah.
And if it's dropping the child for sessions, both of you should bring the child, unless otherwise, because I don't want the child to perceive it's only the father who is concerned, etc. So basically, we always want more of a collective responsibility
Balance,
in terms of disciplining the child.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how early should discipline start? Is there an age?
Early as 0.
Oh,
Yes.
right out of your,
Yes.
right after the womb.
if a child has, but of course, most of the children will have to start exhibiting their behaviors at around, probably around 6 months is when you see them exhibit, throw things, etc. Now, that's now what will determine. For example, between 0 and 2, that's a different age group.
Yeah.
You want to approach discipline from a different perspective. More so, you want to look at it as showing a child what is the right thing to do. For example, if they are they're throwing tantrums about this cup, then I can actually tell them, you don't have to throw this. When you need something, you can always say, Mommy, I need this cup.
What if they don't understand? What if they're like
Kids
a year
understand.
old? So how do you go about it, right? And the thing is, you'll find that they'll keep doing over and over and over again. If a kid is 1 year old, they may not really understand that, hey, it's dangerous because this cup has hot tea in it, for instance. How do you communicate with the child who doesn't yet quite understand?
Instead of saying hot,
Yeah.
show it by saying, when you touch this, you feel it's...
Yeah.
Children learn that way at that age.
Yeah.
Just the way you teach them clap your hands, they do clap.
Yes.
Just the way you tell them before meals, we do pray, they learn it. So mostly you are doing association rather than reinforcement or other methods of disciplining.
Yeah.
Maybe just associate something. For example, removing your hand shows that this thing is dangerous, you don't touch it. And then they will always learn. Something hot, you don't touch it, it's dangerous. So that's how they learn slowly.
Yeah.
So it's mostly through association. But then remember, throughout the whole of this growing up, we have role modeling.
Yes.
See, if you punished child A for a mistake, or you disciplined them for whatever they did, and then the child B, they do the same thing, you don't bother, you've confused a child.
Inconsistencies.
So role model behavior in the way you behave, the way you do things, the way you keep to your consistency, etc.
Yeah.
Always ensure that the child never gets confused.
Okay.
And a good example is, if a 6-year-old child, today you discipline them for breaking a glass, then tomorrow they break a glass, you don't do anything, you have confused a child.
Okay.
So you want to be consistent. You want to ensure that it happens across the board, and it also, you lay bare what you want.
Yeah.
So role model in the way that is the best.
Okay.
So if we fight, for example, if mommy and daddy fight over something, you just simply take the child fighting to solve a given issue.
And they're watching you.
Yes.
They're watching, and they'll start to copy, to emulate that. Now, at what age should discipline end? Does it end?
Oh, discipline really never ends as long as...
So you could be 50, your mom is in her 80s, and she can still discipline you?
She definitely, but she will use a different strategy probably. Say if you're having issues with your marriage, she will actually come in saying, listen, you don't do this. You don't address issues by beating your wife or doing that. They will always, this is part of discipline.
Okay.
So discipline is just basically across
the board. Now, we're almost out of time, but maybe we could go back to the teen, because I find that that's when a lot of times parents and their children just seem to butt heads. I don't know if it's hormones, I don't know if it's just two people coming into their own, or the younger person coming into their own, but what about those instances where your child is just incredibly rowdy? Maybe someone's watching you now and they're thinking, oh, I obviously didn't do all of this. I have a 14-year-old boy in my hands and I can't control them. What's your advice?
Some of these issues already compound themselves and now create a mental problem. For example, what we call conduct disorder, or what we call opposition defiant disorder for small kids.
Okay.
They oppose, they defy, they don't obey rules.
That's a disorder.
Oh, it is.
So is that, it's part of is it under mental illness?
Yes, yes, it is.
Wow, okay.
So this bully, being rowdy, etc.
Yeah.
Some of these symptoms, they compound themselves and now lead to a mental disorder that requires help. What I would say that if everything has failed, and of course I'm not talking about hurting your child, cutting off their limbs, or probably doing that. No, I'm just simply, if you've used all the methods available to you that are they are good, they are positive, bring the child to us. We can always help you modify this behavior through positive ways.
Yeah.
We deal with these cases
all the time.
all
and I guess,
the time.
Yeah, that's
and these kids later on grow up and say, thank you.
That's a great point, that when it's too much, it's okay to seek help.
Yeah.
Wow, you see, this is why I love this show, because every time there's something that we all get to learn. And today I got to learn that spanking is actually not discipline, and that those really, really rowdy kids, that it may not just be a bad kid, but it could be part of a mental illness. So thank you, Daktari, for breaking this down for us. I bet you there's so many people watching who are like, wah, wah, wah. My parents are going to hear it today. In which case, please share this video widely. I know we put it up on YouTube right after the show airs. So if you didn't catch it right now between 8 and 9, please share it on YouTube. And also leave us your thoughts. Were you guys spanked growing up? Because Lord knows I got it bad. But it's okay. You know, we grew up into, or at least I feel like I grew up into a well-rounded human being. At least I hope so. Now, once again, remember we have a giveaway coming up tomorrow, in which, by the way, we're having Mundia come on the show, actually, which is a really exciting show. She's going to break down how she built her empire that is Vivo, which I'm sure you've heard of before. For now, I'm going to have to love you and leave you. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
And we'll see you 8 a.m. sharp. Bye.